Hello, welcome to our PI planning live conversation. Okay, so today we want to talk about PI planning, and most importantly, we want to talk about the importance of PI planning. We want to talk about the different roles in PI planning. We want to talk about what happened before PI planning. So, everything that you can learn in PI planning. Stay tuned. Let's have that conversation. I'm going to kind of use the first maybe 15 20 minutes to go over the conversation about PI planning and talk about the different components. And I'm gonna leave plenty of time so that I can we can interact. So you can ask your questions, and then I should be able to give you the answers. So let's get going. Let me know where you are connecting from. Leave a comment. Let me know where you're connecting from. And yesterday was a great session. We spoke about events, our understanding of event. If you have not watched that session, just kind of go back and make sure you watch the session of yesterday. It was really interactive. So many questions asked. When I wasn't able to answer all of the questions yesterday, and I did promise that okay, I could revisit some of those questions today. But today it's all about PI planning. So let me know where you are connecting from, and let's get started for today and PI planning. Okay, perfect. I see Anja connecting from Texas. Hello, Anja. I see Pierre from Andy. Hello, Pierre. I see Gwenoline. Hello, again. And I think somebody connecting from the UK. It shows me a LinkedIn user, but I think I should be able to get that detailed information from LinkedIn. All right. So thank you for connecting. Now, without wasting much of your time, I think I'm going to go straight to the conversation. Oh, from the UK, that's Charles. Charles connecting from the UK. Adora connecting from Houston. Hi, Adora. Nancy from the UK. Collins from Ohio. Edith from Atlanta, Georgia. All right, please. Thank you. Just keep that coming. I'm going to spare some time and bounce back in there. Okay, let's talk about PI planning. Very important event. Maybe if you have not done SAFE, if you have not actually taken the course on SAFE, this might be a bit strange to you, right? But I'll try to make it a bit more easier. Even if you have not done any SAFE program, you should be able to grab the concept of PI planning. So, what is PI planning in the first place? When we talk about PI planning, it's called program increment planning, and it's also called planning interval. So if you hear someone say program increment planning or planning interval, they're the same thing. The shift in the two words is just because Scale Agile recently upgraded to 6.0. So there were many changes that happened, or many changes happening in the way in some of the terminology. For instance, a Scrum Master is also called a team coach, right? So that's some of the terminology. Now, for instance, a daily stand up is also called a team scene. A Scrum of Scrum is also called a coaches scene. So those are some of the updates that actually happen when Scale Agile moved from 5.1 to 6.0. But when we talk about PI planning, it's all about planning interval or program increments. Now, if you understand what a K environment or working as a Scrum Master in an enterprise environment is all about, this is an environment where you have multiple Scrum teams collaborating on one product. So you might have, let's say that we want to build uh, let's say we want to build um, a marketing portal for Amazon, for instance. Now we might require about 10 different teams to work on that portal. Why? Because Amazon is an enterprise company, right? Maybe You might have a team that need to configure based on different zone. You might have a team that need to configure based on different user. You might have a mobile team. You might have the porter team. You might have the compliance team. You might have the data team. You might have a DevOps team. All of these teams collaborating together to work on a product. Now, because they need to collaborate together, you will agree with me that there need to be a very high level of alignment, collaboration. If not, what is going to happen? They might end up wasting a lot of material. Now, think about a scale agile environment, or think about a safe environment as you're building an estate, right? Or you're building a very big mansion. Now, that mansion will require you to bring in several engineers and several teams to collaborate together. But at the end of the day, what we want to see is one mansion, but we have multiple teams. So it's very important for all the engineers or everyone working that is going to be part of building that mansion to come together to plan so that they know exactly what they are going to be doing. Now, it's also important because we need to have the plumbing work, we need to have the electrician also do their work, we need to have the painters and all of this. And all of these people have to come in at different point interval, which means that they need to be planning collaboration. So when we talk about PI planning, we are talking about we have a team, many multiple teams collaborating on one product, and they need to come together to plan how they are going to implement that product. Okay, so I'm going to use a practical example to illustrate that, a non-software example, so that everyone can relate with. Let's say that we want to start a line of business for hair products, right? A line of business for hair products. And let's say for you to have a complete treatment on your hair, you need to combine about five different products to have a solution. Now, each of these products is a line of business, right? It's an independent line on its own. But if we want to treat this as one solution, we will need all of these people to collaborate together to be able to understand how these different components can function together into one product that give us the result. So in that case, for multiple teams to plan together, there need to be one person who is in charge, because if there are multiple contact point, what happen? Things will not really go on well. So there is one person that facilitate the communication that happen within a PI planning, and that person is called an ROTE, a release train engineer. Right. Now, a release train engineer is the one that collaborate with all the different teams that need to come together to deliver that product, which means that before all the teams are coming together in an event called PI planning, there need to also be some work that need to happen before that day. If not, we come together and there is nothing for us to work on, right? So that brings us to a point where we always have to have what happened before the event, which is more like how do we gather all the requirements that help all the teams working on one product to collaborate. So PI planning is typically a 2 days event if it's in person, or if you have team members that work within the same geographical region, it's 2 days, right? 2 full days. And I'm going to come to the agenda and how you can understand the agenda of PI planning. I will talk about that in a minute. But it's a 2 days event. What's the purpose? To gain alignment. Why do we need to gain alignment? We have multiple teams that need to collaborate to work on one product. So if we don't come together and know who is working on what and what is dependent on what, and everyone is building from their own end, it might end up being really difficult. Now, we might also ask the question, but why don't everyone stay on their own end and maybe we'll communicate through emails and all of that? The reason why PI planning is also very important is in alignment with the safe principles. That it's in alignment with the uh, uh, Agile Manifesto Principle number 6 that emphasizes on face to face communication. And this is also why it's very important. Let's say if I've met you for the first time, the next time when I communicate with you, we are communicating more on a trust level, right? At least I've seen your face. We have communicated. We had coffee together. So the next time I talk to you, I would talk with some level of trust. But let's just say someone referred me to you and I need to communicate to you. That level of trust will not really be there. We're going to communicate, but then the exchange of the face to face, that first contact is very important, right? So, prior to every PI planning, there is work that is done at the background. Who are those who prepare the work at the PI planning level? It's not the Scrum Master. When you ever you hear the word Scrum Master, product owner, they work at the team level. Whenever you hear the word PI planning, it's happening at the program level, which is also called the art level. So the program level or the art level is where work is planned for PI planning. Now, these two different levels, the way you can also differentiate them is that at the program level, we're talking about futures. At the art levels, the language is futures. At the team level, the language is story. If you move up higher, after the program level, we have the portfolio level. The language there is epic. So the way you can differentiate if work is happening at the portfolio level, at the program level, or at the team level, is to know the the functionality, or is to know the language of communication of the work that needs to be done. So if I'm at the team level, I'm going to say, oh, we're going to complete stories. Have you completed these stories and all of that? If I'm the program level, it's like, oh, what's progress with the future? If I'm at the portfolio level, we talk about epic. Okay, what how many epics do we have to pull through this year? So at a program level, we are working on the future. And what exactly is the future? Okay, let's take an example. If I have an iPhone 13 with me, right? On an iPhone 13, I can differentiate different part of the iPhone. It has a camera, which is a feature right here, right? It has like if I it has like the volume button is the future. You have like an up and down. This is a different feature. You have the charging port. This is a different feature. So features are part of any product, which we can put them together to form the entire product. The reason we deal with futures in Agile is because Agile is incremental development. We build in stages. So I can build the camera of this phone and I showcase it to my customer and I say, hey, look, we build a camera with a 30 lens. He has this stuff and they validate this is exactly what I want, but the product is not yet complete. So Agile, it's gaining its grounds in the market because it offers that flexibility for us to evaluate in smaller parts, so that when we get the bigger future, the bigger product, we're not kind of surprised what is going on, right? So when that happen, so okay, let me slow down a bit and then try to align us with it. Probably talking everywhere, but let's see how we get this up. So the goal of PI planning is to ensure that multiple teams that are collaborating to deliver a product can come together and gain an alignment. Prior to them coming together, they are people who make sure that everything they need on that day happen, which is what happened before the PI planning. Now, the person who facilitates the PI planning is called the release train engineer, ROTE. Now, the ROTE doesn't just make this happen on its own. The ROTE communicate with three main important people who also sit at the program level. These include the product managers and also the system engineers. Now, the system engineer is someone who understands all the technical and the architectural work that need to be laid out for all the products to be done, right? Let's say we're building a BMW car. The system engineer will be someone who understands everything that we need in order to put together that car, from the headlamp to they understand all the product, what is needed. Now, The product manager in that case will be someone who understand what the customer needs, right? They can explain what the customer needs, but they might not have the idea of the different components that are needed to build a product. Now, the ROTE understand the process that we need in order to deliver to the client, but they might not clearly understand the detail of the product. So you realize that these two, three different people are coming in with different expertise in order to form what we call the art team, or the major key people in the art. So these people sit together. And we're having a conversation on the table between the ROTE, the system engineer, and the product management. Now we call them product management because there are multiple product managers that will be collaborating at that level. So when they come together, now they can now have a decision on what we should do first, and work is planned on what should be done first, which is where we start building what will be done during the PI. We call them the program backlog or the ad backlog, where we build it will happen during the PI. It's also called the top 10 priorities. It's a common name, but it doesn't mean that we always have to bring 10 items to the PI, right? It's just a way to say try as much as possible to make sure that we have at least 10 futures ready. It's just the same way why we are working at the team level. We always say have at least two level deep with your backlog, right? But today we're talking about PI planning. So these three people are the one that prioritize the work. How do they prioritize the work? How do they know which work should we start working on, or which work should we work on the PI? First, before we go into the backlog prioritization technique, the first main important thing that helps you to understand what work that should be done is communication with the customer. Now, when the customer say, I need this and I need this and I need this, now the customer collaborate with the product manager, and the product manager now collaborate with what? The system engineer. And then both of them sit together and say, okay, if this is needed, this is the steps which we need to do that. And they present that back to the customer. We have a review, and then we can now assign business value that guides us the priority. But work is prioritize at the program level using the weighted shortest job first. Right. So the weighted shortest job first is a formula that talk on the cost of delay all over the job size. Right. The cost of delay have multiple components, but if you look at WestJet, weighted shortest job first, just take a bit of time and read that. You should be able to have an understanding. So when work is ready, there are three input, right? PI planning has input and output. The input is the futures that we want to build, which is called the program backlog or the ad backlog. And then we also have the vision. The vision simply means that what are we looking forward to accomplish? So we have the prioritized backlog, and then we have the vision, right? The prioritized backlog and the vision. So this is what we come to in the PI planning. Now, when we come to a PI planning, the different teams have the opportunity to be assigned different features to work on. But sometimes it's also very confusing and tricky. If you work in a healthy environment, the team would not just know what they are going to work on during the PI. No, this has been communicated to them really well ahead of time. So it's not a surprise that it is. The reason why we have the PI event is just to make things official. So let's reconsider our BMW. Now we have the person that will be doing the electrical work. We have the person that will be working on the tires. We have the person that will be doing the body work. We have the team that will be working on the engine. We have the team that will be working on the lighting. We have the team that will be working on the chairs inside. So all of these team are distributed, all of these activities, and then they go and start planning. Now they are planning based on their expertise. So when the person building the chair start planning and they say, oh, you know what? We cannot start laying out all the chairs framework because we need to wait for the people that are building the body. So now they find out the people who are building the body and reach out to them and say, hey, when do you think you can complete building this body so that we can plan where to start laying out the chairs aspect? Now, the person who is also, let's say, building the body, say, you know what, I cannot complete a lane doing my finishing work until I have the people working on the electrical system to come in and fix all this wire. Now, they need to collaborate with them. So you realize that though all of these teams are working on one product, they are working on different components, and all the components depend on others. So that's why we always talk about dependency. We manage dependency. This team is dependent on this, and now we start thinking about, okay, if I need 2 weeks to complete the body work for the people working on the chairs to come in, then we cannot plan the work on the same period. Team A will need to plan that work within the first 2 weeks, and Team B start planning their own within the next 4 weeks, right? It means that Team B will need to find work that they need to be doing while waiting for Team A. So you realize the importance why all of these different teams come together to plan. So, in a more simple way, in PI planning, first of all, we have all our briefings from the executive briefing to the vision briefing to the architectural briefing. And now we have two major breakout rooms. It's a 2 days event. Day one, we have breakout room one. What's a breakout room? A breakout room simply means that all the teams that are working on different products go and plan, and they figure out what they need from every other team, and they have that conversation as they are planning, so that both teams can understand what I need from this person, where I need this, and if there are too many conflicts, the evening of the day one, they raise all their conflicts to management. So management now sit down and evaluate the level of conflict, and at the end of the day, they come up with a solution on how they can resolve this conflict to make sure that some teams are not waiting idly, are not idle while other teams are working. So they come out with that adjustment on the second day, and then the team goes back again and plan based on the adjustment of management. And then when they finish planning, what happened? They make sure that they resolve all the risks, remain all the risks, and they also make sure that they map out everything that they were doing on the board so that we can all visualize the level of connectivity. And lastly, they're also making sure that everyone who is engaged in the planning understand the planning, right? Understand the planning. And then they do their retrospective, and the PI is closed. So I'm going to give you a summary in less than 2 minutes. What is PI planning? I gave you the detail. Now let me give you the summary. So PI planning is a 2 days event, and if done virtually, it can actually cut across 3 or 4 days. And the goal of PI planning is to gain alignment from all the different teams that are working on the product. So we come together to have a shared vision towards the product that we are going to deliver. So in these 2 days, what we are doing is that we want to make sure that we understand the work that we are going to do as a team and how it connect to the different teams, so that if there are any challenges, we are able to resolve them. So the role of a scrum master in PI planning is to ensure that the team the scrum master is charged with understand exactly what is their scope of work, how their scope of work is related to other teams, and then ensure that their team builds on what they can complete. So, in the process of understanding this, they need to do what? They need to collaborate with other teams to facilitate dependency, and they need to ensure that every possible risk that can cause them not to complete the work, they are raising these risks, and at the same time, they are resolving the risks. All right. So at the end of the day, they have work that has been planned for a period of PI planning. Most team does it for 90 days, which is 12 weeks. Some team does it for 10 weeks, right? Depending on the environment. My environment does it for 12 weeks. So they plan the work that they will do for 12 weeks, right? And the last week in the period, we don't plan work, which is called the IP iteration. So that is maybe a conversation for another day. IP iteration is also termed as pre-PI planning in some environment. All right. So now, what is the job of the PO during PI planning? Now, the PO, whether in every situation, their job is to ensure that they work with the team to help the team clearly understand the product that they will be building, and also to ensure that um, every explanation on the product goal, on the scope, and everything is clarified. Right. So the product owner, it's very important. Now, what are also the different in a PI planning? We also have a Scrum of Scrum happening there, right? How regularly should we have the Scrum of Scrum during the PI planning? Most often, the Scrum of Scrum first is recommended for ROTEs to have a Scrum of Scrum within at the beginning of the uh, PI planning to check with all their Scrum Master to see if they have what is needed, and then also towards the mid of the PI planning on day one to check if the team is having even any challenge and all of that. So recommended two Scrum of Scrum in day one, two Scrum of Scrum in day two. But this is definitely flexible and open. Right. Um, okay, perfect. I think that is a summary of what happened in PI planning. Probably mix out some point or did not talk about some certain point, but let's have questions that are from you. Let me take questions so that any other part that we did not discuss, we can handle them through questions. So, time for you put in your questions and let's see how we can handle these questions. Um, all right. So, Rupa says that that's the first question I think I have on board. No, where's it? Where's says how would teams come together if they are from different time zone? Very important. There is what we call overlapping time zone, right? Let's say I'm in the US and most of my teams are in India. So we plan most of the work, like the Scrum of Scrum and the management review and presentation, to happen in the time where everyone will be available, to happen at an overlapping time. And that's why I said we plan it across 3 days. So you can plan across 2 days, you plan across 3 days. But then when it comes to more like breakout rooms and the different team planning their work, they can actually do it at a time where it's within their time zone. But with events where it requires everyone to come together, we plan it during that overlapping time zones. Yeah, this question that I have had on the interview: how do you PI planning, or how do you do PI planning in your company? Now, if this question comes up, the first thing you want to talk about is is it a 10 weeks, is it a 8 weeks cadence, is it a 10 weeks cadence, or is it a 12-week cadence? So that's the first response you want to give to that. In my company, PI planning, we do PI every other 12 weeks, right? It's a 12-week cadence, right? And then with PI, now, how to master the PI with the agenda? You also want to talk about the duration. If for us, it's 2 days, right? It's 2 days for us, and the first day is executive briefings, and all of the briefings happen within the first day. We do our breakout session within that first day, and then management review happens over in the evening. The next day we come up just as we have them planned in the PI agenda. That's how we complete it. So if they ask how do you do PI plan in your organization, it's just about what's the cadence, and is it do we align the way PI or the way agenda suggests it or not? I've seen some other companies where they don't actually go in the way it's proposed in the PI agenda, right? And not everybody is involved in PI planning. So we have some really diverse way where different company treat it, but the standard way is the way to go, right? The next question says that how is PI how is a PI plan structured to ensure that the product line sustainability over a long term encompasses factors such as addressing technical debt, managing maintenance, and ensuring scalability of the future. All right, now when you talk about the PI plan, the PI plan is just part of the overall agenda. Now, in PI, we measure what we're going to doing, we'll be doing in objective. So, first of all, PI is not the how am I going to put it? It's not the main level where planning is done in a scale agile environment. Planning start at the level of portfolio where we look at what will be done for the entire year for the next 2 years. And then we now go on what will be done for the entire year and we'll break out what will be done during that PI. So technical depth, sustainability, all of that. When PI is completed, we go down to the team level to start building the way a normal Scrum team will build. So all of that is considered in the entire process. Um, oh yeah, so you can find this on you can find this on YouTube. You can find this on my YouTube page, Safe Scrum Chat Room, and then you can also find this on LinkedIn as well. So yes, you can find it on LinkedIn and you can find it on my page. It's not gonna go away. If you go there, you will find it. After PI planning, do various team go back to start practicing all the other events? Yes, all the teams go back and they do normal Scrum. And that's why most often I always say if you're new in Scrum, um, there's and you want to work in a safe environment, there's no need for you to go do a PSM, then come do safe because with safety, go back and do all the events that is done in a non-safe environment. So we teach all of that as well. All the events, how to do sprint planning, how to do a daily stand-up retrospective, all of that are considered. What are the input and output of PI planning? Okay, I did said that the input is the we have the backlog, right? The program backlog, which are the top 10 features. We also have the program vision. These are input. These are input in the PI planning. Now the output are the program board. The program board is where we have program, we have displaced everything we commit that we do, all the futures that we have committed to, showing the dependency and showing the iteration where this is going to happen. And then we have the PI objectives that shows exactly what we're going to be completing during that PI. So those are the outputs. No, not all companies apply PIs. Most companies don't apply PI. And you can also work in a company where part of the company apply PI and the other apply just Scrum. So you can also have that as well. Yes, we did discuss the Scrum Master and PI planning. The role of a Scrum Master and PI planning is mainly during the breakout room session, breakout room one and breakout room two. And the Scrum Master work with the team to ensure that the team is building a plan they can commit to facilitate dependency conversation with other teams and to manage the program board as needed as well. So that's the main goal of the Scrum Master. The Scrum Master also ensure that the team is identifying all possible risks, and all of these risks are raised at the program level. Right, so the Scrum Master is also the facilitator, and Scrum Master also participates in the Scrum of Scrum. The Scrum of Scrum is simply a meeting where all Scrum Master go to, and they can now channel any impediments their teams are facing, if their teams are ready, and all of that. How does the PI plan ensure compliance with relevant industry regulations, standard, and legal requirement? All of this is PI is not a standalone event. PI is built from the entire company compliance. So before, all right, so for you to easily answer this question, you need to understand how we accept work for PI. So work that is accepted for PI come from management, from portfolio. So before management sending work, there have been already some standard and compliance done. Right. So when it comes in, they do what we do what is called future analysis. So we analyze, we don't just take it and put it, we analyze to see the value. And we can also, at the level of PI, reject and send it back to management that we don't see business value in completing this product. So all of this is done. We have the analytical phase. When it passes the hypothesis that yes, this is going to add value to the product before we even drag it to what the implemented the ready column. So all of compliance is taking care of that. Who more relevant in PI planning, the PO or the Scrum Master? Both of them are more relevant. The PO is the facilitator because in PI planning, you have many other teams reaching out to your team for information, for exchange of all of that. The Scrum Master makes sure that you facilitate those communication. If let's say your team is not communicating well, not giving out information, you step in to ensure that you facilitate that. The PO has a job on its own, which is focus on the technical aspect of not really focus on the product aspect to make sure that the team understand, clarifies what is scope is the scope needed, and all of that. So there's nobody more relevant compared to other. Now, for a scrum master who's managing multiple teams, what you do is that if you cannot be everywhere at the same time, so you can dedicate one of your developer to do the facilitation, or the PO can as well do wear both hats, right? What are the steps in facilitating PI planning in safe environment and non-safe environment? We don't have PI planning in non-safe environment. So when you hear PI planning, understand that this is safe. The non-safe environment, you don't have PI planning. You might have release planning, which is a whole component on its own. I might talk about that in a different series. Yeah, the steps is just following the PI agenda as we have discussed in order to um, handle that. What other questions can we expect during an interview about safe? Okay, about safe in general, we are looking more on your ability to collaborate with other teams. We are looking on system demos, right? What's we You can have a question on the how frequent does your team handle frequent demo, or how what's your role in system demo in your organization, because different organization approach system demo differently. System demo simply means all the team coming together to demo their work in order to gain alignment. Is this done in one event? I see some people they can do it independently on other team, but the best approach is that it's done in one event. And system demos are mainly facilitated by ROT. So your role as a Scrum Master in enabling that is just to make sure that your team is ready, and your team have the agenda, they know who is presenting, and all of that. What is the major difference between Scrum Master and the ROT? It's a very big difference. The ROTE is the chief scrum master. The ROTE supervises all the scrum master working in and out. So you only have the ROTE role in a scale environment, right? Why the ROTE work more at the program level with managers and with system engineer. Why scrum master work with the PO and the team and the development team. Yeah, you can watch them again. Now, for those who are not, it's I think it probably easier for you to find it on YouTube, so that because they are sequentially arranged there, you can really put it. So I'm just gonna put the YouTube name here. You can find me on YouTube on Safe Chat Room, right? Safe Chat Room. Uh, Safe like Safe Scrum and Chat Room. If you type Safe Chat Room, you should be able to find my channel there, and you should be able to let me see if I can add a sticker on the name, or you can find me on YouTube. It's also recorded on YouTube, right? Okay, so right here, safe chat room, if you can see on the screen, You can find me there. I don't know if it's just Safe Scrum chat room or Safe chat room. I can't even remember the name myself. But one of those Safe Scrum chat room. All right, so let me see the other questions I still need to attend to. Okay, what is one example of impediment in Scrum? Can you identify and resolve it? Um, okay, I'll come back to that question, Joseph. Is it okay to do pre-PI planning before the actual PI planning? Everything that happened before PI planning is pre-PI planning. Now, the best practice is that immediately launch a PI, we start planning for the next PI. So we don't wait until PI before we start talking about it, right? How do you manage dependency in a safe environment? Dependency is communication, right? The program bug gives you the level of dependency. And also, when we map out, if your organization actually have uh, a tool that can visualize that, it's going to be easier for you. For instance, Jira Align, you can be able to click and see the teams which you are dependent on. You also have Agile View. There are many other tools that can help you visualize dependency. But if your organization do not have this tool, the best way is to effectively document. And also, if you go on Jira, I'll see. I might do a section on Jira. I'll try to see that if that's possible. If you go on Jira, there's always an option of link story. This story is blocked by. This story is related to. You can also use that tool uh, in order to manage dependency. What's the relationship between PI and safe? PI happen in a safe environment. So PI is an event in a safe environment. Uh, Preparing and presenting statute report to stakeholder. It's just about doing a summary of what you have completed and present it to them. It's nothing special. It's not a tool you used to use. It's just about what has your team been doing during this week, and you jot it down. Most of the what is the progress? What is the your velocity report, your bend down chart, but most importantly, your spring report. You do a summary of that. There's no format in doing that. It's just about how's your team doing, and also they are also stakeholders that might be interested in particular statute report. So you also need to know what are they more interested in. Are they interested in the number of bugs? Are they interested in the stories that are coming back? Are they interested in what you completed? So have a conversation with that stakeholder. Make sure you're responding to the right thing. What are the technical responsibilities expected of a Scrum Master operating within the Scrum and a safe environment? They're not technical responsibility. A Scrum Master is not a technical person, it's a facilitator. Although we see company pushing Scrum Master to do more of the technical part, but there are no technical responsibility. Like you don't have to go quote something. You need to understand what your team is doing. That's not a technical responsibility. You need to be able to set up your calendar and schedule events. That's not a technical responsibility. You need to know the software your team is using and working on. Those are not technical responsibility. All of this stuff sound technical because we have not taken out the time to practice, right? So, which is why I always emphasize practice, 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 practice. For those if you want to practice in a real environment, not question and answer. If you want to practice, get yourself situated in a Scrum team and practice. Send me a text, and I will be able to guide you on what we do at the level of our community. Don't call, please. Just send a text. Text or WhatsApp only. No calls, please. How do you manage risks during PI using the room? Roam help to manage risks. Roam simply means that what error is that we take a risk. Let's take a particular risk. Joseph, this is going to go back to your question. Let's say that our work requires us to do a lot of automation, and then we don't have a DevOps engineer. That's a risk. We can't do it because we don't have someone with that expertise, right? We now look at Rome. Is this something that can we can resolve? And roaming, it's only on stuff that you cannot resolve at the level of the team. So you management is the one, you are doing this in collaboration with the management. Now management can say we resolve this by saying, okay, we are going to employ a DevOps engineer by iteration 2. We have resolved it. Management can say, all right, for now we don't have one, but we note that down and we address that next week. They have owned the risk, right? Management can say, okay, there's nothing we can do. Let your team figure out how they'll go about with this. They have accepted the risks. Management can say, okay, we're going to train the lead scrum master on how to do, the lead developer on how to do automation. So they mitigated the risks. So that's how you're able to use that aspect. Okay, perfect. Sure. I'm glad I actually ran through all of the questions today, and this brings us to the end of today's teaching. Tomorrow we are still going to. I said I'm doing a 5 days challenge, right? This is also a challenge for me. So tomorrow it's a Sunday, and tomorrow I'm gonna do at 3 p.m. Central Time. 3 p.m. Central Time tomorrow. We have our next topic tomorrow, and tomorrow topic, I'm going to be talking on release planning. Release planning. So I will talk on release planning tomorrow. So everybody, I see you on release planning. Before you leave, make sure that you share. Somebody might need it. Make sure you share. And for if you need coaching, send me a text. Reach out to me. Even if I cannot help you, I can recommend you uh, resources that can help you go through that. I see you on the other side, and you have a great week. And